Mistakes happen in marriage. It's not a question of if you'll mess up. It's a question of when and how you handle it. Maybe you forgot an important anniversary, let your temper get the best of you, or drop the ball on something your wife was counting on. When that happens, you might feel guilt, frustration, or even that sinking feeling in your stomach that you've really let her down. And if you're in that space right now, I want you to know something. Mistakes don't have to define your marriage. What defines it is what comes next. Today, we're going to walk through the exact steps you need to take when you mess up in your marriage. Stick with me because this isn't about quick fixes. It's about real, meaningful repair that rebuilds trust and strengthens your relationship. Welcome to Better Husband, the podcast that helps you answer the question, how can I be a better husband? I'm Angelo Santiago, a men's marriage and relationship coach, and today we're diving into something every husband will face at some point: what to do when you've messed up. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear plan for taking responsibility, showing your wife you care, and rebuilding trust, one action at a time. But here's the thing, this work isn't easy, but it's worth it. So stay with me because what I'm about to share has the power to change how you approach mistakes in your marriage forever. And here's the kicker, your mistakes don't have to push you apart. They can actually be an opportunity to grow closer if you handle them the right way. Let me tell you a personal story. Throughout this past year, my wife Julie has been asking for consistent date nights. And every time she'd ask, I'd put something together, a dinner or a fun adventure, something she loved, and it was great. But then life would get busy. I would get distracted and I completely dropped the ball on making our date nights a consistent thing. It finally got to the point where she was tired of asking and was really upset. My not so great reaction was to try and explain myself and get defensive about why it didn't happen, but I could see that it wasn't going to help. She didn't need excuses. She needed me to own it. So I took a breath and owned up to where I fell short. I acknowledged that I heard all the times that she asked and that I said I would make it happen, but I didn't. That moment wasn't easy, but it was a turning point. We were able to have an honest conversation about what happened and what she needed from me moving forward. And because of that, we didn't just repair, we actually grew closer together. So maybe you've been there too, and the details of your story might be different, but the experience of letting your wife down is the same. Here's what you need to know. Messing up isn't what destroys marriages. Refusing to take responsibility is. So let's talk about the steps I took in my story and how you can take them as well. The first step is simple, but it's not necessarily easy. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and own your mistake. No excuses, no justifications, just full accountability. And then you have to go to your wife, look her in the eye and say, I messed up. I'm sorry, and I take responsibility. And something like that. But you have to mean it. And that's it. Owning is the foundation for everything that comes next. Because step 2, you're going to ask and listen. Once you've owned your mistake, the next step is to ask your wife how it impacted her. And here's the crucial part. Listen. Don't interrupt. Don't explain. Don't justify. Don't fix any small parts of her story that you feel like don't align with what you saw or experienced. Just listen, pay attention, and take it in. And here's a pro tip. When she's done and you've heard her out, reflect back what she shared. For example, hey, I hear that when I did X or didn't do X, it made you feel Y. And listening might seem simple, but it's one of the most powerful tools you have for rebuilding trust. And here's what comes next. Step 3, apologize with action. A meaningful apology goes beyond, I'm sorry. It includes acknowledging what you did, expressing genuine regret for it, and committing to make a change. For example, I'm sorry I hurt you by doing X. I really feel terrible about what I did, and I'm committed to doing Y instead. And here's the thing, your actions will always speak louder than your words. Back your apology up with consistent follow through, because an apology without action is just empty words. And maybe that's been a pattern in your relationship where you've apologized and said you do better, but then you don't show up. This time, you have to show her you mean it by how you show up every day. And that takes us to the next step. Step 4 is the follow through. Change happens over time, not overnight. If you've promised to do something differently, make sure you actually do it. Trust is built in the follow through, one small action at a time. Think of it as a long game. Every consistent action you take is another deposit in that piggy bank of trust in your marriage. And maybe that piggy bank is empty. Maybe the trust has been totally lost. And so it will take time for it to fill back up again. And this is important for you to realize because step 5 is a key part of this. Step 5, give her space. You have to be patient. Healing does take some time, and your wife may need some space to process what happened. Just because you apologize and you vow to make a change, it doesn't mean that it will immediately make up for years of possible harm that's been done. Giving her that space without pressuring her to move on or let it go or that's in the past shows that you're serious about the repair. When you give her the time she needs and continue to do your part in repairing, you're showing her that your commitment to change is real. And in those hard moments where she's having a hard time accepting the fact that you are making the changes, listen again, go back, listen to why she's struggling. Listen to all the times where maybe you have broken the trust without trying to fix or change or being resentful of the fact that these things are still there. It will take time, but as you continue to rebuild trust, those memories will feel like a distant past. They'll feel like a different relationship that you're no longer in. It was part of your story and what got you to where you are today, but the today and the future is new. It's filled with trust, it's filled with connection, and it's filled with you doing the thing that you say you're going to do. So those are the 5 steps, but let's be real. This isn't easy work. Even if you do everything right, it might take time for your wife to fully trust you again. And that's okay. The process of rebuilding is just as important as the outcome. Keep showing up, keep listening, keep doing the work. And when it feels hard, remind yourself why you're doing this, because your marriage is worth it. She is worth it. And you want to be a better husband. And remember, you also don't have to do this alone. Whether you have a men's group or a coach like me or a trusted friend, having support in this process can make all the difference. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward deeper trust and deeper connection. So I also want to close out with a few practical exercises you can do today. Real quick, before we get back to the show, if you're like me and you're a busy husband with a lot on your plate, sometimes you hear something on this podcast, an idea or a specific practice or a suggestion, and you have every intention of doing the thing that you just heard. But life gets busy and sometimes you forget. Well, that's why I created the Better Husband Toolkit. This is a short, concise, downloadable cheat sheet with 3 of the most important relational skills I believe every husband should know and have in their tool belt in order to improve their marriage. If you're asking yourself, how can I be a better husband today? Go to betterhusbandtoolkit.com and download the short document. And if you have any questions, you can email me. I'd be happy to offer you some more support. Again, go to betterhusbandtoolkit.com or click the link in the show notes and get your toolkit today. Now back to the show. The first one is reflect on responsibility. Take a moment to ask yourself, what's my role in this situation? What can I take responsibility for? In whatever it is, in whatever way you've messed up, if you look at your part in it, like of how the trust in the marriage has been broken, and you can own that part of yourself and don't worry about what her part was. Just take responsibility and reflect on you. Exercise number 2 is if you struggle with that listening portion, I want you to practice active listening. It may not be related to this specific mess up or this moment that you're talking about. It may be about anything else. In your next conversation with your wife, focus on listening without interrupting or defending. Reflect back on what you hear to ensure that she feels understood. Exercise number 3, commit to one action. Choose one specific action you can take this week to show your commitment to change. Start small and be consistent. Don't look at all the things and all the places where your marriage needs work and feel like you have to solve all of them at once. It's not possible. Find one action you can take, something that's meaningful, that you know will have a positive impact and move you in the direction that you want to go in your marriage, and do that thing. Do it this week, do it next week, and just keep going. And as these small steps move forward, this 1% better, you start moving in the direction of being a better husband. I want you to remember this. When you mess up in your marriage, the steps are clear. Own your mistake, listen deeply, apologize with action, follow through, and give her space. Being a better husband isn't about perfection. It's about showing up in a way that rebuilds trust and strengthens your connection with your wife. And if you're curious about the story I shared about me and my wife, we now have consistent date nights. Every 2 weeks are on the calendar, and it's something that I am consistently showing up for, and it's making an impact. I shared in the last episode about how this past year has been such a huge change in our marriage that's made us so much stronger. And these consistent date nights have been a part of it. Owning the fact that I didn't do the thing that she wanted and taking the small steps and the right actions to get us to where we want to go has shifted everything and has rebuilt that trust. And now, like I said, that memory of that mess up is distant. We move forward now. We know that we can get past those hard things and move in the direction that we want. And if for any reason these date nights slip, then I just have to remember the steps once again and step back up and do the things that are going to rebuild the trust. Remember, your mistakes don't define you. What defines you is how you choose to respond. That's how you become a better husband. If you're ready to dive deeper into this work, just download my free Better Husband Toolkit at betterhusbandtoolkit.com. In it, I share 3 great tools to help you show up as the husband you want to be. So thank you for joining me on Better Husband. I'm Angelo Santiago, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, I have a quick request. If you've ever gotten any value from the show and you want the show to continue to grow, to access bigger and more knowledgeable guests, and to keep providing you with more ways that you can be a better husband in your marriage, simply leave a rating and a review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a few seconds, and those reviews go a long way in attracting more experts and bigger guests to the show. So if you're feeling up to it, as a favor to me, I'd love to see a rating and a review from you. Thank you so much for being a listener and all your support.